What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff series. Wants to talk about Calvin Coolidge Lytell. You know him as Bert Lytell. He was a member of the Black Murdersrow. He was born January 24th, 1924, and he died January 26th, 1990. Now, I had the pleasure of meeting Bert Lytell more than one occasion. And my dad and granddad told me many stories about Bert Lytell because he used to train at Stillman's Gymnasium. Now, it was there when he would be named the Chocolate Kid. And Bert Lytell was a fan favorite. You see, the way Stillman's Gym was set up, you had two rings side by side, ring number 1 and ring number 2. Ring number 1, most of the fighters would be in the ring with their cup on and their hand wraps, and they would be loosening up, shadow boxing, stretching, waiting for the name to be called to go into ring number 2. Ring number 2 was where they sparred. Now, Lou Silman would sit down on a stool with a microphone in hand, and he would have a clipboard with the list of names of fighters that was prepared to spar after the other fighters would get out of the ring. Well, Bert Lytell would be on the floor, and he would be banging a heavy bag, and you can hear the snap of those punches halfway clear across the ring. And when he hit the speed bag, he hit it in rhythm. He didn't stop. And then when he jumped rope, he would jump rope round after round after round, in between rounds. Well, when it was time for Bert Lytell to be called into the ring, he would have his cup on. He would have his gloves put in place. Probably you had someone like Bernstein or someone like that, one of the trainers that just happened to be waiting around for their fighter to come in, would help out. And they couldn't wait to help out and handle Bert Lytell because Bert Lytell was a very strong middleweight. He'd get in the ring and he would bang these guys around with no problem. And because of that reason, the reporters would report his accomplishments over and over again. And many men out of town, and those who were local as well, would refuse to get into the ring with Bert Lytell. He was a very strong fighter. July 17, 1944, at the Melbrook Bowl in Newark, New Jersey. He would lose to Artie Town in 6 rounds, lose to him in points. And that would be a shocking news, trying to find the right words, because Bert Lytell was a prospect before he had his first professional fight. Like I said, he was a member of the Black Murdersrow, not at this moment, but eventually he would become one because of the results of him not getting the opportunities that he so rightly deserved. Now, his last professional fight, after 102 bouts, would be against Clinton Bacon, April 16, 1951. It was at the Turner's Arena in Washington, D.C. He would lose 10 rounds, and that would be about it for Bert Lytell. But there were so many more great fights in between that, and we'll go through them right now. Now, Bert Lytell would have 102 bouts in an 8-year career span. Between July 17th and December 11th of 1944, he would have 14 bouts, 10 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. Between January 4th, 1945 and October 1st, 1945, he would have 16 bouts, 9 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw, including a 10-round decision loss to Jake LaMotta, facing Coolidge Miller 3 times in 1945 alone. Now, on August 17, 1945, he would have a 10-round draw with Holman Williams, New Orleans Coliseum Arena. August 31st, 1945, once again, he would be in the ring with Holman Williams. This time he would lose in 12 rounds on points. And the thing about this particular bout, Holman Williams took it to Bert Lytell, which is something that most fighters did not do, because Bert Lytell was very strong and aggressive, very powerful legs, and had a mean uppercut in the left hook combination. But Holman Williams was a true veteran himself. He came up from the featherweight and moved all the way up as high as the middleweight. He would collect the colored welterweight and the colored middleweight championship titles. He would take on himself fighters such as Charlie Burley, Coco Kid, 14 times. He'd be in the ring with the Archie Moores and many, many other great fighters during that time. So he was a handful for fighters such as Bert Lytell. Now, to end the year in 1945, October 1st to be exact, he would find himself in the ring with Little Tiger Aaron Wade at the Coliseum in Baltimore, Maryland. It would be his 36th professional bout, and he would lose to Little Tiger Aaron Wade. Aaron Wade, don't let nobody kid you. He was a very strong fighter himself. He sparred with Archie Moore many times, but he would also face Archie Moore in the West Coast. On his 40th fight, Bert Lytell would be in the ring with Herbert Lewis Hardwood, who was known as Coco Kid. He would defeat Coco Kid in 10 rounds, March 25th, 1946, at the Valley Arena in Massachusetts. He would take on Jackie Cooper, who was another underrated fighter. Many don't know much about Jackie Cooper, but my dad tells me about him all the time. He used to walk with a limp, and he would come into the gymnasium with a bag on the same side of where he limped, whatever the bad leg was. Very interesting fella he was. But Bert Lytell would have a draw in his 42nd bout with Jackie Cooper. He would fight him April 5th, 1946 at the Coliseum in New Orleans, Louisiana. But then he would take on Holman Williams once again on his 43rd professional fight. He would defeat him April 15th, 1946 in a unanimous decision. And this would be at the Valley Arena in Holyoke, Massachusetts. And this was very special for Bert Lytell because he saw himself getting closer to opportunities. But it's just unfortunate that he was such a good fighter and he hit so hard that he was avoided by many. He would take on fighters such as Roy Miller. I think I showed you Roy Miller in one of the scrapbooks. He fought him in his 44th professional bout, June 28th, 1946 at the Municipal Auditorium in Kansas City, Missouri. He took on Herbert Lewis Hardwood in his 45th professional fight, July 30th, 1946 at the Cisco Escobar Stadium in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Then he would take on Charlie Burley, and he would lose to Charlie Burley on his 46th professional bout, August 5th, 1946 at the Civic Arena in Pennsylvania. Now, Bert Lytell, I know, was ranked number 4. No, he was ranked number 8 in 1944. And that's pretty high ranking for a man who would begin his career then. But like I said, he was expected to do better than he did because he didn't get the opportunities that he so just rightly deserved. And he also had to throw some fights as well. He didn't want to throw fights. He probably threw about 6 or 7 fights. But it's the manager that you have, and they'll kill you if you don't do so. And that's the issue that a lot of these black Murdersrow fighters would have. He would take on Charlie Burley in his 54th professional fight. He would defeat Charlie Burley February 17th, 1947 at the Baltimore Coliseum in Maryland. He would take on Sam Baruti April 7th, 1947 at St. Nicholas Arena in New York. That was his 57th professional bout. Fought him and defeated him in 10 rounds in a unanimous decision. Now, if you notice his schedule, he's fighting Black Murdersrow members back to back to back because he cannot get other fights to excel him for title shot opportunity. Now, in 1947, at that point in time, you had a fighter by the name of Rocky Graziano. Couldn't think of him for one moment. Rocky Graziano used to be in Stillman's gym, and he would watch Bert Lytell train. No way he wanted any part of Bert Lytell. He didn't want any part of any of the Black Murdersrow members because he knew about them. And as they stepped into Stillman's gym, everybody watched out for those Black Murdersrow members, especially Charlie Burley. And, of course, Holman Williams. But Bert Lytell was a special fighter during that time. Now, in his 59th professional fight, Bert Lytell would take on Coco Kid. Defeated him in 6 rounds, scheduled for 10, May 18th, 1947. It would be at the New Orleans, Louisiana Coliseum Arena. And this would put him back higher in the rankings again because Coco Kid was very well respected. He would take on Holman Williams and Archie Moore. He would win 1 and lose 1 to these gentlemen. Then he would take on Major Jones. So what was happening to Bert Lytell? He would defeat Holman Williams, defeat Coco Kid, defeat Sam Baruti, defeat Charlie Burley, but then he would go back down again in the rankings because he would lose to Archie Moore. July 14th, 1947 in Baltimore, Maryland. And Archie Moore, as you know, was a well-qualified fighter during those years. He would eventually, as middleweight, move up to light heavyweight, and then he would get his shot in 1952 against Joey Maxim. But Bert Lytell would be in the ring, as I said, with Major Jones, and then Joe Blackwood, Oakland Billy Smith, and Leonard Marrow. Now, he would lose to Leonard Marrow, who's another very underrated. He's a light heavyweight, and he's a very underrated fighter. You don't hear much about him, but he was a very good fighter. And he would give these men hell in that gymnasium as well. Would also take on Watson Jones. Watson Jones threw a lot of fights, but he was the California state light heavyweight champion. He would lose his title to Charlie Burley. Did Watson Jones. No, Watson Jones lost his title to Jack Chase. And Jack Chase would lose his title to Charlie Burley. So Watson Jones lost his title to Jack Chase. I want to make that crystal clear. And Bert Lytell would then take on Major Jones April 5th, 1948 in Wisconsin, Massachusetts, Milwaukee. So I just wanted to talk about this great fighter as he would take on Roy Williams. I think I showed you a picture of Roy Williams. He was also in the ring with Oakland Billy Smith, Jerome Frazier, Al Johnson. He was a police officer. Who else did he fight? Charlie Williams, Chubby White. I'm not sure if he was in the ring with the Hatchet Man Shepherd or not. But I know that he sparred with him many times. He also sparred with a fighter by the name of Harry Bobo. Harry Bobo was a heavyweight, as did Charlie Burley, as did Holman Williams. They all sparred with Harry Bobo. Charlie Burley knocked out Harry Bobo, who was a heavyweight, in Pittsburgh. And word got back, and a lot of people couldn't understand how that can possibly happen because Harry Bobo was a very strong fighter. But Bert Lytell would lose to Harold Johnson December 7th, 1949, and he would lose again to Archie Moore January 31st, 1950. He would lose to Jimmy Slade, who was an up-and-coming light heavyweight. Jimmy Slade would have his fights with Floyd Patterson. Shows you how long Bert Lytell was in the ring. He would have a no-decision contest with Oakland Billy Smith. And then he would lose twice. Well, he would fight Clinton Bacon twice. He would lose one and win one. And I don't know much about Clinton Bacon. I know my dad was talking about him. My dad used to sit me down and talk to me about a lot of these fighters. Bob Amos and so many of them. So when you look at fighters during the 1940s and 1950s, Tony Zale ran that middleweight division. And he didn't give men a shot. Of course, obviously, the war had frozen out the titles, but he still fought fighters such as Rocky Graziano, 46, 47, and 48. And there's no excuse why he didn't give opportunities to the black Murdersrow or other black fighters for that matter. So that's why I don't hold Tony Zale in high regards, although I can't deny that he was a great fighter because he was. He just didn't challenge himself with the fighters that would make me believe that he would deal with these men on a high scale level. So thank you for listening to me about Bert Lytell. Bert Lytell was a hell of a fighter. Like I said, he was a member of the Black Murdersrow. There you had Coco Kidd and Charlie Burley, Holman Williams, Little Tiger Aaron Wade, Eddie Booker, Lloyd Marshall, of course, Bert Lytell himself. I even include Archie Moore and Jimmy Bivens and Ezra Charles before they became champion. And these men were magnificent during their reign. I can't think of a better fighter to salute than Bert Lytell. Thanks for listening. I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff series. All great fights, all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. And like and subscribe to this channel. I don't often ask that, but there's a lot of more content that I'm going to be thinking about putting in that I haven't shown before. I'm going to be showing some articles that I haven't shown before. So you got to show the gratitude and like and leave some comments. Otherwise, there's no sense. Thanks. Peace.